The Boston Bruins were without 3 of their top 6 defensemen for last night's game against the Toronto Maple Leafs and still found a way to get the win. We're going to talk about how they did it, who stepped up, and some other controversial moments from the game, including Brad Marchand's trip on Timothy Liljegren. Plus, a quick preview of this weekend's game against the Detroit Red Wings, all on today's episode of Locked On Boston Bruins.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things Spoked B. Today is Friday, November 3rd, and I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins part of your day. Free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All you have to do is smash that subscribe button, and each new episode will be automatically added to your feeds for you to download, listen, and enjoy. If you're on social media, you can find the podcast at Locked NHL Bruins on X, Threads, Instagram. You can find me, my hockey thoughts, and dad jokes at Ian C. McLaren. Thank you for bearing with me yesterday as I took a day off from the podcast to attend my wife's Opa's funeral, who passed away this past weekend at 94 years old. Once that was over, came home, found out my son had injured his foot at school. Thankfully, just a hematoma and nothing is broken. So that was my day yesterday. Watched Bruins, Maple Leafs live from the Guelph General Hospital emergency room and was thankful that they got the win and glad to see Jake DeBrusk also score his first goal of the season. We'll talk about that here in a couple moments. First, the defense was the big story last night. The Bruins were without Charlie McAvoy, Matt Grzelcyk, and Derek Forbort, and still found a way to beat the Toronto Maple Leafs by a score of 3-2 in a shootout. A very impressive performance from some guys who have played lesser roles on the blue line so far this season, especially young Mason Lohrei, who is making his NHL debut and passed with flying colors. He had 21 minutes and 28 seconds of ice time, 3 shots on goal, a hit, and he also had a secondary assist on Pavel Zacha's game-opening goal. After the game, head coach Jim Montgomery said that he was dynamite. Quote, he played really well. His poise with the puck in all 3 zones is very noticeable, and he made a lot of intelligent plays, end quote. He skated in all situations, and he was, dynamite, I think, is the way to use it. Dynamic is another way to say it. Forbort currently day-to-day. McAvoy, 3 games remaining on his suspension, although it was reported last night that he's going to appeal that decision, try to bring it down by a game or 2. Very unlikely that happens. It was a fairly egregious hit, and I think the suspension should stick. Matt Grzelcyk a bit further away, and so Lohrei should at least remain with the club until everyone is back from injury and suspension. But honestly, I think he should be there. He looked not out of place at all, and it really seemed as though he is NHL ready after just a handful of games down in Providence. Some truly dynamic moments out there with the puck. The goal that Zacha scored, he set up Brandon Carlo for a mini skate along the walls, following a diving keep-in from Danton Heinen. Carlo then found Zacha in the slot to tip it in to give the Bruins the 1-0 lead at that point. Again, he played in shorthanded situations. In the second period, he was assertive, did not look out of place at all, and Mason Lohrei, I believe, should stick with the Bruins for as long as possible. I know there will be some considerations when everybody's back, but for now, did not look out of place at all. Hampus Lindholm carried the heaviest load, 30 minutes of ice time last night, 2 shots, a hit. Brandon Carlo, 22-49. Kevin Shattenkirk stepped up, 21-39. Parker Witherspoon and Ian Mitchell, a bit more sheltered, playing less than 14 minutes apiece. So they really relied on the top 4. Witherspoon did have 4 hits in limited ice time, and Mitchell had 2 shots. So they were still net positives. But Lohrei was the big story last night, really stepping up and proving that he belongs at the NHL level. The Bruins, they were playing against a fairly high-powered offense in the Toronto Maple Leafs. And it looked like for a time, perhaps Toronto was going to get the better of them. The Bruins were up 2-0. Toronto scores twice to erase that lead. Mitch Marner, Austin Matthews. It could have gone awry at that point, and I think it would have been understandable if the Bruins had dropped this game to Toronto, playing without all these key defensemen. But again, the Bruins were able to withstand the pressure, get things to overtime, and in fact, they outshot the Maple Leafs 40-35 in this one. It was 35-35 after regulation. The Bruins with 5 shots in overtime compared to 0 for the Toronto Maple Leafs, which again is a testament. I think at one point, Montgomery had Lohrei, Poitras, and Marchand or Pasternak out there in overtime, which is a testament to how much he trusts these young guys. He was accused of being effusive in his praise for Poitras, wasn't holding back with his praise for Lohrei, and he really wants, it seems, these young guys to be on the roster to get a chance to shine and thrive, and that's what they have been doing so far. Now, again, full credit to the goaltending. Jeremy Swayman, fantastic. Stopping 33 of 35 shots against for a .943 save percentage. He is now at .954 for the season. And Linus Ullmark, 2 of the main reasons why the Bruins off to a 9-0-1 start. But again, with the defense being what it was last night, the fact that they were able to withstand the Toronto Maple Leaf attack and also get the win. It wasn't just the goalies. They weren't standing on their heads per se, just making solid saves. And the Bruins came out with the win in overtime, thanks in part to Jake DeBrusk's offense. And we'll touch on that here as the podcast continues. As a business owner, you realize there are times when receivables might fall behind. But that doesn't mean you need to fall behind on vendor payments, payroll, or rent. For more than 25 years, Parkview Advance has helped businesses secure working capital. From $5,000 to $1.5 million, Parkview Advance can approve your working capital in as little as 24 hours. It's a much easier process than you might imagine. We invite many entrepreneurs that are Locked On NHL fans to learn more by calling 203-675-0071 or visiting parkviewadvance.com. If your business needs working capital, call Parkview Advance today. Parkview Advance, helping businesses with their working capital. Go to parkviewadvance.com. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you can do it all with Indeed. You can find top talent fast with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like Indeed Instant Match, assessments, and virtual interviews. Indeed's data shows over 80% of employers find quality candidates the moment they sponsor a job. Visit Indeed.com/lockedon to start hiring now. Indeed knows that when you're growing your own business, you have to make every dollar count, and that's why Indeed will have you only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. Go to Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. If you need to hire, then you need Indeed. Thanks so much once again for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine, free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. And on Monday, we'll be back to recap this weekend's action, a game coming up against the Detroit Red Wings, and bring you all the latest on the black and gold. Those of you watching on YouTube can see that there's a new addition to the podcast space. This gnome, Bruins gnome that my mom's church ladies group made, and they're selling these things to raise money. So the gnome will sit atop the dresser, but not block Bobby Orr. Another big story, another one of the top thoughts from last night's game is the breakout from Jake DeBrusk. He made it 2-0 at 1:36 of the second period, charging into the offensive zone before sending the puck up to Brad Marchand in the slot. Marchand's shot was stopped by Ilya Samsonov, and DeBrusk potted the rebound for his first goal of the season, rewarded for getting to the hard areas, and that's something that he's trying to build in his game, something that he's been trying to focus on. He knew to get that monkey off his back, it likely wasn't going to be a pretty one, although you could argue that this one was a pretty one. Just wasn't coming, but he knew he had to get into the paint and make something happen. And then later on, he scored in the shootout on a beautiful little floater over Samsonov to help the Bruins get the victory in the skills competition. Charlie Coyle with the other marker in that one. So DeBrusk, got off to a bit of a slow start. He had the disciplinary action for missing the meeting on the West Coast road trip. This is a contract year for him. The expectation is that he will challenge for 30 goals at least. That's what he was on pace for last year before getting injured during the Winter Classic. And he's got some work to do to get back on track. At the moment, only on pace for 8 goals, 33 points. That has to pick up. He does have, how many shots on goal does he have this season? 19 shots in 9 games, so averaging a bit more than 2 shots a game. He really needs to pick that up as well. So we'd like to see more performances like that. Last night, 4 shots, 1 goal, the shootout tally as well. Hopefully that will help Jake DeBrusk get a little bit going here. The other thought I wanted to bring up was Brad Marchand stirring it up with the Toronto Maple Leafs, taking Timothy Liljegren hard into the boards. Liljegren will be out for significant time pending further evaluation. A lot of Maple Leafs fans were calling for blood on this one, saying it was an egregious non-call, should have been penalized. There should be suspensions on this one. I mean, penalty, sure. You could call a penalty for tripping there. But I don't know if it's suspension worthy. Liljegren initiated contact as they were both going into the boards. It wasn't as though he was kind of unsuspecting and Marchand just clipped him unaware. They were both going in. Liljegren leaned in. They got tied up. Unfortunate that he was injured, but I don't think anything more should come from it. It was hilarious to see the Leafs bench chirping Marchand afterwards. Pan over to former Bruin Tyler Bertuzzi. He's just sitting there chuckling. Bertuzzi, I should add, demoted to the fourth line in that one. Bruins at the moment getting better value from James Van Riemsdyk at $1 million than the Maple Leafs with Bertuzzi at $5.5 million per season. So those are my three thoughts from this one. Lohrei, I should also add, he was born in Baton Rouge, and he is the first Louisiana-born player to appear in an NHL game. Kevin Shattenkirk was playing in his 900th NHL game, and the Bruins are the second team with a season opening point streak of at least 10 games, joining the Vegas Golden Knights. They're actually off to a better start than they were last year when they went 9-1 to begin the season. They're now 9-0-1, 19 of a possible 20 points, which is just unreal. I did not have that on my bingo card. We talked about how the first 7 games of the season were fairly soft. They had a tougher schedule coming up. A win against the Panthers, a win against the Red Wings, a win against the Maple Leafs, and now they will once again take on Detroit in a Saturday night game. And we will discuss that here in a moment as the podcast continues. Around our house, we understand the value of therapy. My wife is a certified therapist. We both visit our own therapists regularly and have benefited greatly from that experience. Whether or not you're in therapy right now, you can't deny the benefits. It's helpful for learning positive coping skills, how to set boundaries, dealing with anxiety, powers you to be the best version of yourself, and it isn't just for those who've experienced major trauma. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, and it's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Find your bright spot this season with BetterHelp. Clock's going back this weekend. It's going to start to get dark early. The holidays coming up. November, December, January can be tough times for people. BetterHelp is here for you. BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNHL. You can get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNHL. Get 10% off your first month by using that promo code. The Boston Bruins will be back in action Saturday night to take on the Detroit Red Wings. Second straight Saturday that they take on the Winged Wheel after having won last Saturday night in what was billed as a battle of Atlantic Division Titans to begin the season. Now, Detroit still in second place in the Atlantic. They have 13 points through 11 games. They're fifth, however, when it comes to point percentage. 13 points in 11 games. Canadians, Maple Leafs, and Panthers all with better point percentages than Detroit at the moment. The Bruins still clearly the class of the Atlantic, 9-0-1, 950 point percentage, plus 16 goal differential. Detroit is next best in that category at plus 7. David Pastrnak, pretty hot still over the last 5 games. He got 6 points, 3 goals, 3 assists. Pavel Zacha really heating up with 4 goals over his last 5 games. And if you look at the Bruins' leading scorers, you see that the projected top 2 centers coming into the season rank in the top 5 in scoring for the Boston Bruins. Pastrnak, 14 points in 10 games. Marchand with 10 points in 10 games. McAvoy with 8 points in 9 games. And then you have Pavel Zacha with 4 goals, 3 assists for 7 points in 10 games. And Charlie Coyle, a goal and 6 assists for 7 points through 10 games. So those guys have been stepping up in the absence of Patrice Bergeron, David Krejci. Matt Poitras also joining the party with 3 goals and 2 assists, although he's been kept a bit quiet over the past couple of games. 3 games now without a point. He did have 2 shots last night, 2 the night before, and still playing big minutes and playing very well at both ends of the ice. But Pavel Zacha, red hot right now. He's got 4 goals and 2 assists over his last 5 games. 3-game goal streak going on at the moment. So look for him to keep that going against the Red Wings. On the other side of things, their leading scorer over the past 5 games is Moritz Seider, actually. The big story early on was Alex DeBrincat, Dylan Larkin. Those guys have cooled off a bit. 5 assists for Seider in his last 5 games to lead the team. Lucas Raymond with 2 goals over the past 5 games to pace the Red Wings there, as DeBrincat and Larkin have cooled off. The Bruins, of course, won 4-1 last Saturday. Still have the top. 1 second. And of course, a kid calls from school while I'm recording. Anyways, where was I? Bruins still allowing a league low 1.6 goals per game. They are scoring 3.1 goals per game, which is 16th. Red Wings 3.64, which is good for 5th, but allowing 3 goals per game in 12th. I think James Reimer started for them last night, so it should be Ville Husso against Linus Ullmark. Husso 4-2-1 with a 900 save percentage. Ullmark 4-0-1 at 939. Special teams, Bruins still first in the penalty kill, 97.4. They held the Maple Leafs without a power play goal last night, despite being without 3 of their top 6 defensemen. Power play could use some work, though. It's only 20th, 15.6, whereas Detroit is 6th at 28.6. So they'll be a big test for Boston's depleted penalty kill unit. All right, that is it for today's episode, my friends. Thank you so much for taking some time to listen today. Thank you for your ongoing support. Thank you for the kind words in the YouTube comments and on social media. Be back on Monday to bring 3 thoughts on the Red Wings game and bring you all the latest on the Boston Bruins on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every single day.